If you are trying to replace 100% of your livestock feed with this ultra-fast growing plant, you are going to starve your animals. Here is the actual truth that other videos are hiding from you. Right now, farmers across the world are dropping serious money every single month on bagged feed, protein pellets, grain concentrates, mineral supplements, and most of them have no idea there is a living, breathing, faster-producing plant that can legally, safely, and permanently slash that bill by 15 to 20%, starting in as little as 2 weeks. But here is where every other video gets it catastrophically wrong. They show you this plant, call it a miracle, and walk away. No protein math, no temperature warnings, no honest talk about why your pond could collapse in 48 hours if you make one simple mistake. Today, we fix all of that. I am going to give you the full picture, the biology, the setup, the harvest protocol, the feeding limits, and the exact economic math that tells you whether this is worth doing for your specific operation. Let's start with the most important thing I need you to hear. The videos telling you to throw Azolla in a tub, feed it to your animals, and cancel your feed delivery are missing something critical, and what they are missing could cost your animals their health. Here is the biological reality. Azolla is an extraordinary plant, but it is an aquatic fern. It is not grain. It is not energy dense. It does not contain the starch, fat density, or fibrous structure that chickens and pigs need for full development. And it cannot meet a ruminant's requirement for high-energy dry matter either. So what is Azolla actually good for? It is a protein supplement. A living, self-replicating, nitrogen-rich protein supplement that you grow yourself for almost nothing. When used correctly as a partial feed replacement, Azolla delivers a crude protein content ranging from 25 to 30% on a dry weight basis. That puts it in the same conversation as many commercial protein additives that cost significant money per kilogram. The safe operational window is simple. Replace roughly 15 to 20% of your commercial feed ration with fresh or dried Azolla, not 50%, not 100%, 15 to 20. At that level, you can achieve measurable feed savings while maintaining animal performance. Push much beyond that without professional nutritional guidance, and you risk creating protein-energy imbalances that reduce productivity rather than improve it. Now that we have established what Azolla cannot do, let's talk about what it can do. Azolla is not a typical plant. Most plants take weeks to produce meaningful biomass. Under optimal conditions, Azolla can double its biomass every 48 to 72 hours. Think about that. You start with 1 kilogram, 2 days later you have 2, a few days later you have 4, then 8. Very few forage crops can match that growth rate. How does it do this? Azolla possesses a remarkable biological partnership. Inside its leaf cavities lives a cyanobacterium called Anabaena azulei. This microorganism captures atmospheric nitrogen and converts it into forms the plant can use. In other words, Azolla is constantly manufacturing protein using sunlight, water, and nitrogen from the air. That is why its protein content is so impressive. Its amino acid profile is also valuable. It contains meaningful amounts of lysine and methionine, 2 amino acids that are commonly deficient in grain-heavy livestock diets and often require supplementation. Beyond protein, Azolla contains beta-carotene, a precursor to vitamin A. This is one reason poultry keepers often notice deeper orange egg yolks after introducing Azolla into laying hen diets. For goats and cattle, there is another advantage. Azolla contains almost no lignin. Lignin is the tough structural component that makes hay and woody forage difficult to digest. Because Azolla grows in water, it never develops those rigid structures. The result is a highly digestible feed supplement. However, there is an important catch. Fresh Azolla is roughly 90 to 94% water. That means most of what you are looking at is moisture. Feeding calculations must always be based on wet weight versus dry matter. Now let's talk about building a system that actually works. The first step is choosing your growing container. You do not need expensive aquaculture equipment. Azolla thrives in shallow, still water. The ideal depth is around 10 to 15 centimeters. The next priority is surface area. More surface area means more room for growth. A wide, shallow container will outperform a deep, narrow one every time. Light management is equally important. Azolla prefers partial sunlight. In hot climates, direct all-day sun can overheat the water and damage the colony. A simple shade cloth or naturally shaded location can dramatically improve performance. Next comes nutrients. Azolla needs a consistent nutrient supply to maintain rapid growth. One of the most practical options is a diluted slurry made from aged cow manure. Mix 1 part manure with 10 parts water, strain out solids, and add the liquid to your tank. If cow manure is unavailable, compost tea or vermicompost liquid can also work. Avoid pouring synthetic fertilizers directly into the pond. Excess nutrients can trigger algae blooms that compete with the azolla. Temperature management is the biggest challenge. The ideal range is approximately 20 to 28 degrees Celsius. Above 30 degrees, growth slows. Above 35 degrees, colonies can collapse quickly. In hot climates, shade cloth and occasional water changes are your best defense. In cooler regions, greenhouse protection may be necessary. Water pH matters too. Azolla performs best between pH 5.5 and 7. A simple aquarium test kit can help you monitor conditions. Once your colony is established, you should see rapid expansion across the water surface. Healthy azolla appears dense and deep green. Reddish coloration often signals nutrient stress. Pale growth can indicate temperature or lighting problems. Now let's talk about harvesting. One of the most common mistakes beginners make is harvesting too aggressively. A good rule is to harvest no more than 10% of the pond surface per day. Azolla's dense surface coverage helps suppress algae growth. Remove too much at once, and you create open spaces where algae can quickly take hold. Harvesting itself is simple. Use a fine mesh net or strainer. Skim gently across the surface and collect the material in a clean container. Then comes the most important step. Always rinse harvested azolla thoroughly with clean water before feeding it to animals. Remember, the plant has been growing in nutrient-rich water. Rinsing improves cleanliness, removes odors, and increases palatability. Fresh azolla can be fed immediately after rinsing. If you produce more than you need, you can preserve it by shade drying. Spread it in a thin layer in a shaded, well-ventilated area until dry and brittle. The resulting meal stores far longer and can be mixed directly into feed rations. Now let's get into the numbers. For laying hens, a practical supplementation level is around 75 to 100 grams of fresh azolla per bird per day. At approximately 92% moisture, 100 grams of fresh azolla provides about 8 grams of dry matter. With 25% crude protein, that translates into roughly 2 grams of protein contribution per bird each day. For pigs, supplementation levels are generally lower. A growing pig can receive around 150 to 200 grams of fresh azolla daily as part of a balanced feeding program. For goats, 300 to 500 grams per adult animal per day works well as a protein supplement alongside normal forage and feed. For dairy cattle, 1 to 2 kilograms of fresh azolla daily can contribute meaningful supplemental protein when incorporated into a balanced ration. Now let's talk economics. Feed costs rarely move downward over time. Every kilogram of purchased feed you can responsibly replace represents permanent savings. For many farmers, reducing feed purchases by even 15% can create meaningful monthly savings, especially as operations grow. The startup investment for an Azolla system is relatively small, particularly if you use recycled containers and locally available materials. Many producers recover their setup costs within a few months. Of course, every system has failure points. The first is heat. A shallow, dark-colored tank in full sun can become dangerously hot in just a few hours. Shade management is not optional. The second is algae. Most algae problems begin with overharvesting, nutrient imbalances, or poor canopy coverage. The third is pests. Mosquito larvae can thrive in still water. Small surface-feeding fish, such as guppies, can help control them naturally. The fourth is neglect. Azolla systems require daily observation, not hours of labor, just a few minutes each day. Check temperature, observe color, monitor growth, harvest responsibly. Consistency beats complexity. Once you master one tank, scaling becomes straightforward. The best strategy is modular expansion. Instead of one giant pond, build several smaller units. This approach creates redundancy. If one module experiences problems, the others continue producing. As you scale, record keeping becomes increasingly valuable. Track temperatures, harvest weights, nutrient additions, and observations. The data will help you improve performance and identify issues before they become major problems. There is another benefit most people overlook. Your Azolla system also produces a useful biofertilizer. The nutrient-rich water can be diluted and applied to vegetable gardens. Surplus Azolla can be incorporated directly into soil as green manure. This creates a simple closed-loop system. Livestock produce manure. The manure feeds Azolla. The Azolla supplements livestock feed. The surplus fertilizes the garden. The garden produces food. Nothing is wasted. This is one reason Azolla remains attractive for small-scale farmers seeking greater self-sufficiency. Let me finish with a simple 14-day action plan. Day 1, source a starter culture. Days 1 through 3, prepare your container, add water, introduce nutrients, and inoculate the system. Days 3 through 7, monitor conditions and allow the colony to establish. Days 7 through 14, begin light harvesting, rinse thoroughly, and introduce small amounts into existing feed rations. By day 14, you should have a functioning, self-sustaining system producing meaningful biomass. And that brings us to the final takeaway. Azolla is not a miracle feed. It is not a complete feed. It is not a replacement for balanced nutrition. What it is, however, is one of the fastest-growing protein supplements available to small-scale farmers. Used correctly, it can reduce feed costs, improve feed resilience, support animal productivity, and contribute to a more self-sufficient farm system. The farmers who fail with Azolla are usually the ones who ignore its limits. The farmers who succeed understand exactly where it fits. They manage temperature. They harvest responsibly. They rinse before feeding. And they use it as a supplement, not a replacement. If this is your first time learning about Azolla, start small. Build one module, learn the process, track the results, then scale when you are confident. A few square meters of water today could save you a surprising amount of money over the coming years. And that is a return worth paying attention to. I will see you in the next one.